Let's get started. Again, welcome to the BroadSky August webinar, and we're going to be talking about wireless solutions in the modern network. One of the themes I'm going to touch on throughout this is what we're not talking about here is wireless failover, air quotes, wireless failover. There's 100 different companies offering wireless failover, and when 100 companies come into something, by definition, it becomes commoditized. And when something becomes commoditized, it goes to the lowest cost provider and the lowest common denominator. Wireless failover from 2015 was a fairly simple solution. You put one box out there and you failed over to it, and that was as good as it got. In 2021, that's no longer the case. And so what BroadSky is doing is, yes, it's wireless failover if you want to describe it that way, but what we're really doing is integrating our solutions to every part of the technology stack, regardless of where your customers are going. And so most companies are just coming in at the end and saying, well, put a router in there and you'll fail over to it if things don't work out. But that's really not good enough anymore. As one example, if you look at a corporate headquarters, a 2015 solution wireless failover device will run at about 15 meg down. But if I have a 1 gig fiber circuit, a 15 meg failover is meaningless. You're going to need more horsepower than that. And so time after time, what BroadSky is doing is matching the technology to the opportunity. And so that headquarters has the appropriate, your mobile network has the appropriate, your branch has the appropriate, your work from home has the appropriate solution with the technology that's available, matching up to each solution at a reasonable price point. And then we integrate it all together into one bill, and we help support everybody's sales efforts for that. Pardon me. So our agenda today is just to talk about about BroadSky. We haven't got to the agenda yet. BroadSky is a single source provider. We're a managed service provider for LTE networks. We've been at this since 2003. We started in satellite, since that's what wireless internet was in 2003. And then we were purchased by an Internet of Things company called Epic.io in January of 2020. December of 2020. We've received a number of awards, including Inc. 5000 4 years in a row, the CERN MSP 500 2 years in a row, actually. And then the channel MSP 501 Channel Futures Award as well. Headquartered in Fort Mill, South Carolina, parent company is Epic.io, and our sister company is IntelliSite, who has a very strong offering in the Internet of Things category, including public safety, illegal dumping, and anything you can monitor, put a sensor on and you want to monitor that within an industrial application, and the solutions are really very powerful. Outside of scope for this conversation, but something that we're very excited about. Our agenda today is one to talk about the modern network and the modern solutions that people are putting out there now. The network from 10 years ago compared to the network of 2021 is virtually unrecognizable, and everybody's moving to the cloud, and we're going to talk about the impact for that. Then how do you implement wireless solutions into that modern network for safeguarding, for throughput, for performance, for business continuity, and for making sure that the company is always on? And then we're going to look at 3 separate solutions. This is part of the larger things, but we're going to dig into a headquarters, a branch, and a work from home in this particular webinar. And then as we move forward, we're going to talk about mobility in vehicle, temporary connectivity. We'll get into hard to reach areas, things of that nature. And so the series from BroadSky in our webinars for the next 5 months is talking about weaving wireless solutions into the modern network and then drilling down into each use case for that and where we fit and how we help. So before we talk about that, and I won't spend a lot of time on this, but at the core of everything we do is our gold standard in wireless. And to this day, there's not another company still who does this. And so it's worth talking about. So the first thing we do is we have access to all 3 carriers. And if you include Canada, all 6 carriers. We will deploy the solution on the strongest carrier at every address. We do not base this on who's the cheapest carrier, as so many of my competitors do. We deploy on who the best carrier is. And so we do a virtual site survey at every location. We discover who the strongest carrier is based on crowdsourced metrics of performance over the last 6 months, and then we deploy that carrier. Additionally, in our devices, we have a second SIM slot where we will put a second inactive SIM for whichever carrier came in second. That's your first step in ensuring that you get good coverage where you're going. If you deploy on the wrong carrier or the cheapest carrier, you won't get good performance. And the entire premise of why we did this has failed because we put a cheap solution out there that doesn't run very fast. Then we'll deploy on the latest equipment, a minimum of a Cat 6 router, but we also have access to the Cat 11 routers, the Cat 18 routers, the Cat 20 routers, and the 5G routers. And each one of them just runs faster and faster and faster. They also cost more. And so now we can help companies determine how fast you want to go compared to how much does it cost and what makes sense economically right now. And then offer a clear upgrade path when they exceed those parameters and they need to go to the next level. We do data management for all customers. We do data reporting on all customers. And so we put that out there for them to say, this is how much data you're using against what you expected to use, so that they're not blind as to how much data is going across the network. Many solutions you are blind. We cross-carrier pool all that together so they pull from one common pool. And then we deploy these solutions in a zero CapEx model, meaning you don't have to buy equipment, you don't have to worry about your warranty, and you don't have to worry about a carrier contract. Everything comes from Broadspec. So today's modern network, the thing we all agree on is cloud-centric. Everybody's putting everything in the cloud. There are very few exceptions to this. 98% of what you're working on, I'm sure, has a cloud component to it. Because you're going to the cloud, it means it has to be always on. If you can't get to the cloud, you literally can't do business anymore. Everything gets disrupted. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, but that's the theme surrounding all of this. Is the cloud offers so many benefits to so many companies for so many reasons. But the one downside to it is you have to be able to get to that cloud from every location all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so how do we do that? And so Broadspec has solutions for that. So on-demand, 100% uptime. You want a diverse path away from just what wires are in the ground, because if one wire is in the ground and then you put a second wire in for diversity next to it, they are likely in the same trench, same conduit, same right of way, same something. And if one gets hit, all get hit. And all of a sudden, we're not in the cloud anymore. We're dead. Then you want it dynamically configurable so that you can scale bandwidth up for need. Broadspec offers a variety of different speeds that can scale up on demand, and you can fail over to them and put all your traffic to it for a period of time if you need to. And then finally, it connects the entire enterprise on a common solution with a single pane of glass management. So whether it's your trucks or your branch locations or your work from home workers or your headquarters location, it's all administered from one pane of glass. That becomes very important from the admin side. So your traditional network sort of looks like this. We have branch office, we have headquarters with likely a 1 gig fiber circuit, and then your distribution center, your stores, and your branch, the other branch office. Everyone's connecting to the cloud, everyone's communicating through the cloud. And so a lot of people are rolling with this device right now. And these cloud applications have given them enormous benefits. The risk, however, is you look at the modern network with a wireless piece to it. If any one of these sites can't get to this, they can't talk to each other. And so the vehicles go down, the temporary sites can't be up and running, headquarters can't do what it needs to do. And so if we look at every application you're putting out there, whether it's how much cloud failover we have, or we're now going to host all of our business applications in the cloud, not on site on a server. Every time we put one more service in the cloud, all those efficiencies we gain from that, we also take on risk. What if I can't get to it? And the impact of it, if you can't get to it, just keeps growing. So the modern network when connectivity fails, we look at headquarters here and all of a sudden that goes away. Or we look at your work from home workforce showing either a quality loss, or pardon me, a complete internet connection loss, or work from home workers are all experiencing intermittent quality, where sometime during the day, the entire neighborhood's on the internet or the entire family's on the internet, and they all of a sudden can't get their business work done because there's not enough bandwidth available because it's a shared resource. And so we offer a solution for that as well. Or you look at just the X at the branch office here. If they can't do what they do, each one of these assets now disappears until someone comes along to fix that. So we're just going to do a blow up on headquarters and the close up and what the impact of what happens if you cannot get to the cloud at headquarters. So this is a sample listing. You're going to lose connection to your ERP system, your entire UCAS system, all your VPN tunnels. You can't do financial reporting because you've now put your financial reporting tools in the cloud as well. You don't know literally how much money you have at this moment in time. You can't move money or receive money, and your customer relationship management platform disappears. You can replicate this in the cloud as many times as you want, but if you cannot get to the cloud, it doesn't matter how many times it's replicated. You can't get to it. And so we don't want that to ever happen. The business impact, just a sampling, product delays can't get designed. You're going to miss a deadline because your designers promised something by 5, but now they can't collaborate with other people, so they can't get it done. So now it rolls into the next day. Somebody can't pay you, so there's a cash flow disruption. If you have any form of regulatory compliance, whether you're a medical facility or you're a financial services firm, you're required to have access to your customer information and your sensitive information at all times. If you can't get to it, you're now out of compliance. If you're doing any sort of employee monitoring, employee safety, any sort of security system monitoring that's going back to a central hub, if you lose connection to the internet, you no longer have that. And it could be your personnel or it could be your assets in the field. Is something overheating? Is something going too fast? Is a vibration sensor or something along those lines not working out right? And alerts are going off back to your NOC, but you can't get to them because you're not on the internet. You don't know when your deliveries are going through. You don't know any of your logistics. You can't answer any customer questions about when does my shipment arrive. And bottom line, you're damaging your reputation. A company is no longer a trusted supplier because they disappeared for a period of time. And that loss of reputation is difficult to get back, particularly when all these other impacts start rolling through. Bottom line, business stops. And we just can't afford that anymore. So the way we safeguard this at a corporate, particularly at a corporate headquarters, is by dropping in not just a wireless connection, but a wireless connection that's fiber grade. So we're sort of labeling this fiber grade failover. What we've noticed at a headquarters is that they used to be served by a 100 meg internet connection, which turned into a 500 meg internet connection, which is now likely a 1 gig fiber connection. Their business has scaled to take advantage of that 1 gig fiber connection. They put more and more things into the cloud because we have 1 gig to the cloud, so let's put it up there. They use more and more internet on a daily basis, and if this disappears, not only do all those applications stop, but next we go, well, we'll fail over. If you fail over to a 2015 wireless technology that runs at 15 meg down, 7 meg up, that is not fast enough to replace that 1 gig fiber circuit. So we have to scale the failover to how much speed is going into headquarters, which has inexorably crept up. And the way we do that is with a bonded solution from BroadSky, where we're not just going to connect to one carrier, but we're going to connect to 4 carriers at the same time. Bond all those together into one usable download and one usable upload channel. And so the graphic shows we'll connect to AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile all at the same time. Then we'll double up on one of the carriers because we have 4 SIMs we can bond, but only 3 carriers to connect to. So whichever carrier is fastest, that's the one we'll double up on. What this gives you is one, up to 400 meg download and 100 meg upload. The second thing it delivers for you is you brought in triple carrier diversity for your customer. Even if Verizon disappears, you still have AT&T and T-Mobile that you're drawing from, or AT&T disappears or whatever. So the value of this is not just the speed, but the diversity side. And then finally, this unbreakable internet component, what this means is that all of your sessions stay valid. So if you look at a corporate headquarters, if there's 1,000 people in there, any 300 of them are online collaborating with somebody at some point. Either they're collaborating with a system. If they're in accounts payable, accounts receivable, they're collaborating with another person. They're on the phone, they're on a UCAS call, or they're talking to a customer, they're communicating with a customer in some fashion. Those active sessions all stay up and running with our unbreakable internet. The failover is fast enough. You might see a momentary hiccup, but you don't drop off and have to re-engage. And so business keeps running. This is not a solution that's easily delivered between the bonding and the unbreakable internet. I can't think of another provider who can actually do this. This is a premium failover service for your premium customers that they probably haven't been approached about yet. And by offering a service like this, you're positioning yourself differently than all your other competitors because you're scaling the service to what they actually need versus what they needed 6 years ago. Then examining this at a branch location, it's the same concept and the same solution, just scaled down by 1. For a branch solution, we would probably bond 2 SIMs together. And so we would connect to arbitrarily AT&T and Verizon at the same time, bond them both together. You still have the unbreakable internet. You still have the carrier diversity. The cost point on this is a little less, and we're just kind of scaling it down to the branch. The branch can certainly have a 4 SIM solution as well, if they'd like. With the wireless failover, your last mile connection is always diverse. So going back to what I was talking about, your number one risk for losing internet is actually ground interruption or terrestrial disruption. It is not loss of network. So if a backhoe hits one, it hits all. A flood hits one, it hits all. And it's very difficult to engineer around that because there's only certain access points coming into the building. Even if you have a SHINS ring, a self-healing network service, with fiber exiting two directions out of the building, oftentimes those fiber circuits can come together at a common point up the road somewhere. With wireless, you're assured that you're not in the ground and that a backhaul in a flood cannot take out your wireless by definition. So when we add that unbreakable internet plus uncuttable internet plus enough speed, now you've actually got a real application that truly will serve the needs of the business. So the third thing we wanted to drill into in this webinar is we talked about the headquarters location and we talked about the branch location. Now we're talking about the remote workers. You guys have probably heard of COVID, and everybody went home. And to some extent, the people who went home are going to stay home, whether they come back to the office 2 days a week and are home for 3. This is a massive change in sending workers home. But what they're doing is they're operating on networks that were designed to serve the consumer, not the business. So there's X amount of internet download and upload feeding the town. There's X amount delivered to the subdivision. There's X amount delivered to the house. Those are all shared resources. Additionally, in the house, you have people competing for that same bandwidth. So the business user is competing with the teenager, is competing with the movie watcher. There's no way that the ISP can recognize that the business packets are more important. With the BroadSky solution, we change that and we actually start managing that home network. So we dedicate the bandwidth to the professional user at home, and then we deprioritize the home users. So the gaming might slow down, deal with it. The movies might slow down, deal with it, but the business user always has the most bandwidth dedicated towards them during the day. And then once the business unit gets off and it goes into evening, then it just flows through and it works the same as it always did. So we're prioritizing that business traffic. This eliminates the drop calls, the start overs, the jittery Zoom sessions, the jittery team sessions, et cetera, that are very much frustrating at home workers. They can't get their work done because they keep having to start over. And then finally, it has a wireless failover component. So if they lose all internet, we'll fail over the pro user. The family user is not going to have internet because they wouldn't have had it otherwise, but the pro user will still be on if the internet disappears in the entire subdivision, or it slows down so much that they can't get their work done. We'll fail over the pro user to the wireless side. They'll continue to do what they do, and then everyone else has to wait until speeds get better again. So that's the BroadSky kind of close-up of the work from home solution. A little bit more of a close-up on this. There's 3 different flavors of this. So there's bandwidth bonding, WAN smoothing, and automatic failover. So just making work from home work. You can see that we're bringing in maybe a DSL line and an LTE and an LTE, and then bond all 3 of them together so that all the speed available at the home actually gets bonded in one place and then sent out. This is a great solution if you're trying to work from home, but you only have DSL. It's enough bandwidth to get on, but it's not fast enough, especially on the upload. We can augment that with a wireless connection. So we're actually bonding the wireless circuit and the wired circuit together for more speed. Then on WAN smoothing, this is technology inside that actually it will fill in lost packets, or it will predict what the packet would have been. And then there's also the WAN smoothing and something called forward error correction, which operates on a similar basis. So that those packets don't get jittery and lost. And it eliminates sort of the start overs and the clipped calls when you use WAN smoothing. And then finally on the automatic failover, should that DSL line disappear, we'll just run all the traffic on the LTE until the DSL comes back up and running again. So you could think about this for the at-home workers. You could also think about this for branch locations kind of around the country that can only get DSL, which is still happening. And we all know that they're not investing in the copper networks anymore. DSL keeps getting slower and slower. And so augmenting that with a wireless device, combining those 2 circuits together can be a solution for hundreds and hundreds and thousands really of remote locations around the country to get the speed they need to connect to the modern network. These are just different flavors we have for this. The 4G, 5G enterprise is direct wireless access. This is for the work from home worker. We'll actually put a device out there and just run everything over the wireless, where we're not even bothering with managing the home network. They just have a dedicated wireless circuit that they run their business on. It's a valid solution, and they don't have to do any home networking. or we kind of move up the chain where we get into load balancing and connecting that wired circuit together through our device. Then we'll send it out over the fastest circuit, and then the wireless just becomes an overflow. We can also put content filtering on this, and we're optimizing the home connectivity at all times. The other feature that sits inside of this is there's a firewall in our box. And so any virus that comes across, say, a home user from going out of the internet from a gaming site or any site that they visit, it gets to the home network and it then tries to migrate over to the pro side. Our firewall is an additional layer of protection to stop that virus transfer. And then the final service on this is the CSD-WAN service, bundled SD-WAN 4G, 5G, where we had speed bonding together, WAN smoothing, forward error correction, and that unbreakable internet component where it will fail over immediately without any drop packets. So just 3 different flavors for the work from home. You start climbing the monetary tree a little bit, but what's nice about this is you can explain it to your customer and kind of lead with the premium. And then if they want to go with the premium, great. If they need to drop down economically, you have more options for them. Personally, I always like leading with the premium, so at least people can see what's possible. So a use case, just to sort of drill this down, it's a large customer of ours, Fortune 500, and we're supporting now 1,100 of their retail locations on the service that I described to you today. So it protects their point of sale failover. If they lose internet in the mall or at the location they're in, they can still conduct credit card transactions. And so we failed over, and they failed over to us numerous times, believe me. They processed hundreds and thousands of dollars of business through us when their primary internet disappeared. Second, they're using us when they build the store, but the wired internet connection isn't there yet. They will open on us. So again, dozens of times for this customer and hundreds of times throughout BroadSky's history, people have kept their store opening on schedule using a BroadSky internet device. And then, because we all know that wired installations sometimes incur delays, and so you have hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, into an opening, but you have no internet, it's embarrassing and you've lost a lot of money. And so people run on us until the wired circuit comes in. And then finally, they're using us in their warehouses and some places that don't really have good internet connections to augment how they do this. So they have, their net result is single source provider, best carrier recollection, data pooling across all their sites. They have a single pane of glass that they can manage all this from. It's repeatable and it's engineered for best signal. I'll just tell you a little bit of the sales background. This customer had been trying to deploy the solution with a name brand router and a single carrier for a year. They were failing. The project was killed by the CIO because it was not working. They actually had 1,000 routers that they had purchased and they weren't able to deploy it. They came to us and we had everything deployed in 3 months. It worked great at every location. And then from there, they've just been adding locations with BroadSky. So the top 5 takeaways for this is, again, if we think about the modern network and how everything's cloud-centric, BroadSky is your partner in the beginning of this stage. Because when you're recommending that we move something to the cloud or we move something away from how we've traditionally done it, but let's put it here instead, that known risk of what happens if I can't get to the cloud is in the back of their mind. If you can step in with an integrated solution that says, 1, I can provide you a wireless failover. 2, I can provide you a wireless failover that scales to the need that you have. This is the modern version of it. It weaves in 5G. We can bond multiple carriers together, and we can make it run fast enough to actually be meaningful in a failover event. That sets you apart from everyone else who's in there and assuming it's a commodity. It is not. Connecting the enterprise obviously is critical. And with the advancements in 4G, 5G bonded, wireless solutions are now a key part of this for either the failover piece or delivering enough speed at the remote locations where they can't really connect to the cloud because they don't have enough speed. Now they can using wireless. We have solutions for the work from home. If anyone wanted to just specialize in work from home solutions, I'm talking to a dozen different companies who have a different flavor of solution for this. It's a massive need. It's not getting solved. The problems that underlie it of trying to run a business on your home network are never going away. The at-home internet design is 15 years old and they can make it faster, but as soon as you make the internet faster, people just demand more internet. So having the ability to guarantee throughput and quality from your remote workers is a field that you could just specialize in and I think do really well. And then as your strategic wireless partner, we'll remind you again of the gold standard. These, regardless of what we do and what solution we deploy and what router we recommend, and if we bond it or we don't, and we get into the details, what's underlying all of this is that we're going to do what we've always done. We're going to pick the best carrier at that part. We're going to pool it together. We're going to do this based on quality, not cost. And we're going to deliver a solution that is credible and stands and supports all the other solutions that you're recommending to your end users. Okay. If we wanted to delve further into this, these are the people you would reach out to. And one thing I forgot to mention at the top is at the end of when we do these webinars, we go through the Q&A. If you had a question that you went through, if you want to type it into the Q&A box, we'll answer that question. First of all, we'll read the question back for the benefit of all, and then we'll answer that question to the best of our ability. We go in the Q&A first, and then we go into the chat side. So as far as reaching out to learn more about this, please look to where you sit, not where your opportunity sits. And so in the Midwest, talk to Ash Kakish. Northeast, talk to Mike Cardinal. On the Southeast, Todd Hulsenbeck. Southwest, Scott Sharple. Southern California, Amy Eshelman. And Northwest, Jim Miller. If you have, if you're a service provider and you are looking to weave these solutions into your larger solution, that's the wholesale channel, in which case you would talk to me. Okay, so I'm going to go into the chat side. I see the questions in here, and so I'm going to start to add them, answer them, and then if other questions come up while we're doing this, just go ahead and put them into the chat side or the Q&A side, and we'll answer them. So first question was from Bob. Will we get a copy of this presentation? Yes, you will. So everyone on this presentation will get a copy of this along with the audio. And we send that out in 1 or 2 days. It's also posted to our YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and then search for BroadSky, this webinar and every webinar we've ever done is actually posted there. It's fascinating and entertaining, I'm sure, but if you want to learn more about everything we do, they're all posted there. So I have a question. How does BroadSky manage data and usage? Is there visibility into usage, and how does data pooling work? Yeah, so to expand on that a little bit, if you consider going directly with the carrier versus how we do it, if you go directly with the carrier, one, they'll recommend themselves at every location, and it won't work at every location because they all have dead spots. The second is it's very difficult to see how much data you're actually using when you're with the carriers. They have a portal, you go into it, it's either by design or by accident, it's very confusing, and they sort of hide that information. What ends up happening is you end up either consuming more data than your data plan, in which case you pay overages, or the reverse of that is you consume less data than you paid for, in which case you're in an overbuy situation. So you purchase 500 gig, but you only use 300. You purchase 200 gig for free from the carrier. With BroadSky, we do it in reverse. We use all 3 carriers so that we don't have those dead spots. And then we put it all into one common pool. The third thing is we send out a weekly report to you showing how much data you're using against your pool. And then we can actually adjust that within the month. Our goal is that if you buy 500 gig, you use 500 gig. But if you're only looking to use 300 gig, we want to change your plan so that you're only using 300 gig. We want to eliminate all overages and all overbuys. We have another question for 4G or 5G. Does a business need to put an antenna on the roof? The answer to that, I'm going to answer this statistically. 99.2% of BroadSky deployments do not use an external antenna. There's still a lot of wireless solutions do require, for instance, if you go to a fixed wireless provider, you have to put an antenna on the roof, which can be very challenging. But in 5,000 deployments last year, somewhere in the 48, 50 range, we didn't deploy an external antenna. Having said that, if you need one, we can deploy it, and we can take care of that for you. There are certain advantages to an external antenna, which are this. You'll be picking up signal from outside the building instead of inside the building. And the signal outside the building is always stronger. So you can grab it outside and then bring it in. The second advantage of that is you can point at a tower and make sure that you're getting the strongest signal from that particular carrier. The third advantage is in remote areas, you might be a ways away and you really need an antenna to bring that signal in. I think the BroadSky current record is a 17-mile shot in an oil field in Wyoming or Colorado. I don't remember which, but we got signal from 17 miles away. It wasn't the fastest signal, but it was enough for them to report on. It was a pipeline out there, and it needed to report on whether it was open or shut. So they didn't need huge speed. They just needed visibility into that site. So those are the two reasons why you might want to use an antenna, is either to maximize the performance at the location or to bring something in from a long way away. Okay, the next question we got is, how available is 5G today? And what should businesses do while they're waiting for 5G? So that's a great question. All of you, I'm sure, are going to see 8 to 10 ads for 5G today, and then 8 to 10 ads for 5G tomorrow. And it makes it seem like 5G is ubiquitous and everywhere. Here's what's interesting about 5G. For years, 5G was considered to be equivalent to a millimeter wave technology. That is the technology that will deliver a 1.5 gig download with 3 millisecond latency. That was 5G forever. Somewhere along the way, the carriers decided, we're not going to wait for millimeter wave to be deployed. We're going to call our next network advancement 5G. And so that's what T-Mobile did, and that's what AT&T did. And that advancement they're doing is just, they keep adding more and more frequencies to their towers. It's a classic solution in telecom is if you can't get enough throughput on one place, get throughput somewhere else and bond it together. So we probably all bonded T1s back in the day. Or if you look at dense wave division multiplexing, where you send different colors of light over the same fiber channel, that's what they do in wireless too. They broadcast on, instead of one frequency, they broadcast on 30 of them. And then the router you put out there will pick the best 4 and bond them all together, as an example. So the 5G frequencies are what's called 5G sub-6. And these are frequencies that were purchased by the carriers in auction from the FCC over the last year, and now they're being deployed into the network. Each time you put a frequency out there, you have another channel that can be used for upload and download. But the router you put out there has to be able to see that frequency. So if you put a router out there from 2015, it doesn't see the frequencies that were invented in 2021. That's why you have to keep up on the curve and deploy the latest routers. What 5G does is uses the frequencies that have been released for sub-6, and then additionally, it will bond 7 frequencies together. And it actually does something called DSS, which is dynamic spectrum sharing, which is a more efficient way of using the equivalent network. That's where 5G is right now. And so BroadSky is well-versed in the 5G routers from both Cradlepoint and PepLink. The speeds are better. They do run faster. And the cost of the equipment is a little higher. The way to approach your customer is, I can get you 5G now. Let's get into the performance stats. Let's look at the cost thing and see, is this economical and profitable to you at this time, or should we wait? If we don't go to 5G, we can go to just the level 1 beneath that, which is category 20, or the level 1 beneath that, which is category 18. Each one runs just a little bit slower, and it costs just a little bit less. So again, we can lead with premium 5G and then drop down to what makes the most sense for your customer. And your channel managers can help you design that. Okay, that was the last 2 questions on the chat, but I have 2 on the Q&A side. So Bob asked, equipment deployment, do we do it, or does BroadSky do it? Do we get trained on the routers? Great question, Bob. Again, about 99%. One, we do offer we do offer a pro install service where we will roll a truck and we deploy this. That can be valuable for multiple site locations where nobody on site is qualified or trained to even go into the equipment room. Or if you have to do 100 of them in a week, you just need extra hands to get this out the door. Generally speaking, however, our customers do self-install. We've made it, once you pick the best carrier and you've put the best router for that location together, now it becomes something pretty simple to kit and ship. So we send it, they take it out of the box, they screw in 2 antennas, they plug a Ethernet connection into an available WAN port, and they now have their wireless connection. So you could install that yourself if you wanted to for a fee, but from scalability standpoint, most of our customers do self-install. We've made it that easy. Steve asked a question, what is your view on the new satellite internet network, SpaceX and the impact on BroadSky or other carrier options, speed and cost, specifically the impact on remote workers and SMBs? Another great question. So I live in Minnesota, so I'm far enough north where I can get Starlink. I've had Starlink in my yard since February. And when it works great, it gets about 60 meg down. And when it works poorly, it gets about 0 meg down. It's at the point, Steve, where I can see, if I just do continuous speed tests, I can see the satellite come over the horizon, because my speed will go from 0 to 20 to 40 to 60 to 40 to 20 to 0. My wife actually used it for her dedicated internet for her home office, because she does a lot of VPN stuff. She works for an insurance company, and after 5 days she quit. So Starlink, as we sit, is not ready for prime time. It's not ready for business use. You wouldn't want to rely on it. Having said that, Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, and he owns a rocket company. He's stated that he's going to put enough satellites up there and then mesh them all together to make this work. The only thing between him and doing that is money, and he's got money. I anticipate that the Starlink network 3 years from now will be a viable alternative for about 60 meg down, and then the upload isn't as fast, maybe 15 meg up, and the latency is low enough where you could run VoIP on it and VPN on it. And I anticipate that a lot of companies are going to put a Starlink connection on their roof. The next thing that happens from there, which is what happens with every satellite network that's ever been deployed, is as more users come onto it, it's a limited resource. They only have so many satellites, and it starts to slow down. And then you have to throw more satellites up and more ground stations. So over a 5-year period, you see them run fast and then get slower, and then run faster as they upgrade, and slower. But larger point, I think Starlink is valid. I would not run my business on it today, but I would pay very close attention to it as it continues to roll out. Okay, that was the last question on the Q&A side. And I just went back over to the chat, and that was the last question on the chat side. So that concludes our webinar for the month of August. Thank you for joining, and we will do this again next month. Now we're talking about similar concepts, but we're going to apply it to mobile workers, temporary internet, pop-up, and hard to reach areas that aren't well served by the fiber in the ground. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. And please look to your email for a copy of this as it gets sent out to you in the next couple of days. Okay.